Somebody who didn't do this mitzvah, and the 14th went by and he didn't bring a korban pesach. So the Gemara says, somebody who was mevatel this mitzvah, and he was over Yom Habo also, and he didn't bring it, and he's neither tomei or derech rechoika. He doesn't have to bring. He's chayav koros. He's chayav koros. It's because it says in Bamidbar, if somebody is torah b'derech loya, and he didn't make the korban pesach, that person is cut off. In Sefer HaMitzvahs, the Rambam adds, chayav koros, we learn, is both on man and both on a woman, as we say in Halacha previously. And if he was mevatel b'shkoga, v'im bitlo b'shkoga poter. If he did it b'shogig, he's poter, because koros is only on mezid. Now, it's b'shogig. There are only two mitzvahs say that you have an onish koros on if you nullify them. Pesach or Milo. All the other are mitzvahs lo yisesa. You're obligated koros b'mezid, chatas b'shogig. But you don't bring a chatas on bittul mitzvahs asay. You don't on a nullification of a bittul mitzvah asay, you do not bring a chatas. And these halachas will explain that in Pesach there's two mitzvahs. There's shchita v'achila, slaughtering it and eating it. That, as the Rambam pointed out at the beginning in the Akdama. And the Achronim asked a question, why did the Rambam divide it up into two mitzvahs? Not it should be the same as other karbonos, that the eating and the shchita are one mitzvah. Even more so, Rabbi Yerucham Perla asked a question, b'chol karbonos is the mitzvah say to eat it, as it says in the Rambam itself. And still, we don't find a mitzvah for each korban. Everything is included in one mitzvah. Eating kochim. Therefore, why does he say that korban pesach is different? That the mitzvah achil is counted by itself. Kerem Shloimeh answers that since the Torah established a time for the shlitas pesach, for the time of doing it, different so than other karbonos, that doesn't have a time. Therefore, the shlita is considered by us as a separate mitzvah. That's why it's separate from the eating. It's not in the time of the eating. There's no other korban that's like that. The shlomim, whenever you shechlit, you have 2 days and a night. Every other korban is different. Maram Shik, it doesn't accept his answer, since the Rambam says in his roots that the specifics of each mitzvah are not counted as a separate mitzvah because they're included in the actual mitzvah. Thus, the Isur, the Shech, the Korban Pesach before Chatzos, is not only part of the aspect of the Pesach. And therefore, the question, according to the Maram Shik, remains, why is it considered a separate mitzvah? The Yereim and the Baal Even Ezer, brought down in Chemdes Yisrael, explain that since the Zmani Achilo and the Akrovim of the Korban Pesach are different, the Akrov is by day and Achilo is at night. Therefore, there are two separate mitzvahs. Just like the Rambam counts Shema, Shachris, and Avis as two separate mitzvahs, since they are done in separate times. And that's again what we said before. Rambam gave a proof that shlit and achila are two different mitzvahs, because if you don't slaughter it, you're chayav koros. But if you don't eat it, you're not chayav koros. And it's different to say the lechem aponim and achilosoi, which is considered one mitzvah, even though you put on the lechem aponim the Shabbos before and you eat it the Shabbos afterwards, because there's only one punishment. Even though the mitzvahs that are inclusive in the lechem aponim are done at different times. Another answer, Perla says, when you eat the Korban Pesach, there's many dinim, specific ones, that you don't have by other karbonos. You can't eat it roasted, or and it has to be eaten only in one house, and other specifics. Therefore, the eating of it is considered like a mitzvah by itself. The fourth teretz, the Beis Halevi writes, when you eat kochim, you're not chayav. There's no chiyuv on the person, a specific person, to eat it from the korban. The mitzvah, it should be eaten, even a shlomim, even a chatos, any kohen. A shlomim, the owner doesn't have to actually eat it. Therefore, it's part of the actual mitzvah of the korban. Therefore, it doesn't consider it separately. Korban Pesach is the only one where the person has to eat a kazayas in the korban, and therefore it's a mitzvah b'fnei atzmo. It's its own mitzvah. And therefore you have to eat a kazayas, because by other korbanos, as long as it's eaten up, even if you eat less than a kazayas, it would be fine. And therefore, according to Beis Halevi, we understand the question. We can answer the question of Danila Bavli, who is known for his questions on the Rambam. Why the Rambam counts lecha aponim and the achila as one mitzvah? Because lecha aponim, people got less than a kazayas. There's no mitzvah achila. But the mitzvah is that lechem aponim should be eaten. It should be totally eaten. It's a mitzvah on the cheftza. Therefore, it's part of the mitzvah to have it eaten, and it's not counted as separate mitzvah. However, Rabbi Yochanan Perla explains that even mitzvahs korban Pesach, there's a chiyuv, they should eat it, and it doesn't matter which of the bnei chabur eat it, as we'll learn when we go on. Sadi Goin disagrees on the Rambam, and he says that shlitas Pesach and achilosai is one mitzvah, and in fact the achilo is the main mitzvah, not the shlita. And Rabbi Yochanan Perla explains that the Rasag is of the opinion that the shlita is only causing you the ability, making it possible for you to eat the korban. This basis, the Pesach is mostly the eating is the main part. You find them sochen. The din, the korban tzibur, is brought even betumo. Why? Because tumo hutro betzibur. And we find that korban Pesach can be brought. And still, even though they brought a betumo, you can't eat it, usually a korban that's brought betumo, except for Pesach. If you brought a betumo, it's eaten betumo, because it's made to be eaten, and that's the purpose of it. So you see, there's also a uniqueness about a korban Pesach. And Rashi adds, even we'll say that eating of the Pesach is not makiv, meaning if you don't eat it, you still have fulfilled your mitzvah. What you need to do is spraying the blood, or spilling the blood at the base of the base of mizbeach. Still, at the time of the spilling of the blood, someone has to have been able to eat from the korban Pesach. If not so, you ate to your obligation. Furthermore, Abdaniel Babel questions the Rambam. He himself is of the opinion at the time of the shlitas of Pesach, a person has to be able to eat it, and therefore the achila is the main thing and not the shlita. And he asks, why does he count it as two mitzvahs? Rambam answers that even though achilas Pesach is the ikar, it doesn't say that this is it's one mitzvah. Because if he just slaughtered it and he sprayed the blood, but he didn't eat it, he was mekayim at least one mitzvah. Therefore, according to Daniel Abavli, achilas Pesach is something that would preclude one from fulfilling the obligation of, if he didn't eat, he wouldn't have fulfilled his obligation. And if a person could eat at the time of shchita, he did not, it's not enough to have shchita and a spilling of the blood for him to be part of chorus. He has to eat it. And if the time went by of the first and the second he didn't eat, then he's chayav chorus. And according to Rabbi Rambam, since we could have eaten it, and therefore it's as if he kept the mitzvah kilchosa, there's no chorus. This makes a big nafkamina if you say that the achil is part of the mitzvah or not, as to whether there's chorus. The Maram Shik writes further, why, according to the Rambam, shlitas Pesach is called like a mitzvah of ne'atzmoi? Because we find in Kiddushin, shluchei shalom kamoisei, How do I know that? It says V'shokto oisei kol kahal adas b'nei Yisrael beinu haboyim. So the Rabbi Yeshua ben Korach asked the question: does everybody shecht it? You can't. One person shechts it. From here we see shluchah shel adam k'moisei, that the agent of a person is literally as if he's doing it. Thus we see that the shlit of the Pesach can be done through a shliach, whereas eating it, if somebody else eating the Korban Pesach will not suffice for you to have eaten it, and therefore shlit is considered a mitzvah by itself. According to the obligation of Shchitas Pesach, the Hilchos Chametz points out that since the din of shlichus is only Korban Pesach, that means by other karbonis you don't need that the sheikhah should be your shliach. It goes even further. Pnei Yeshua and the Makne and Kedushin also point out that the sheikhah is not obligated to be a shlich of the bailam, because you see from what it's interesting. You can bring even a raya from he says the goyim give karbonis, right? And we take from them. You can't have a shlichus. The goy can't make shlichus. But there's another raya also. The Kahanim didn't allow people to shecht. Now, if a person says, I want to shecht, and the Kahanim won't let him, right? And it's kosher bezor, then technically, if you don't want it to be a shliach, how can he be a shliach? But he didn't mention that here. But Korban Pesach is different. That the Bailim are obligated to count it to say that the sheichet is the shliach. Therefore, if the Baalim don't want someone should shech for them, he doesn't become a shliach bal kochi. If he shech is possible. So too, if somebody says so and so shouldn't benefit from me, that person can't be a shliach, because shchita he benefits from it. Therefore, the Hilchos Chametz asks the question: why the Rambam doesn't mention that by Korban Pesach you need to have a shliach, that is a definitive obligation to tell him to do so. In the Sefer Tiv Gittin, he writes in the name of the Yerushalmi, you don't need shlichus by Korban Pesach. A person can shecht the korban of his friend Shalom Midaita, even without his permission. And therefore, maybe the Rambam is of the opinion like the Yerushalmi, and therefore he didn't mention this din of shlichus by Korban Pesach. In the Minchas Baruch, he disagrees on the Minchas Chinuch. He's of the opinion that even if you need shlichus, you need to make an agent to shecht the Korban Pesach. Still, it's only a mitzvah, but it doesn't impede the korban. If it was done without shchita, the korban is kosher. As you find, the korbanos need smicho and tnufo, meaning you have to press against the animal and you have to lift it up. If you didn't do so and you didn't pick it up, it's not ma'akiv b'di'evet. The korban is kosher. The Hilchos Chametz says, like the Minchas Baruch, that even though you need shlichus by shlichus kochim, if it was slaughtered without shlichus, it's kosher b'di'evet. And it's kosher b'di'evet.